As we approach a car, we take a few seconds to check around it. Most things aren't good for much after we drive over them. It could be our tires if we drive over this rake. It's especially important to check before backing up. Anything just behind the car will be invisible from the driver's seat. Animals aren't always particular about where they take their leisure. But the greatest risk is small children, who often find the driveway a great place to ride and play other games. Children anywhere near a car are a threat. Now we see them, now we don't. We need to know where any kids are before starting to move. From time to time, it's also a good idea to check the car itself for damaged tires. They're okay. Or signs of trouble underneath. No sign. These are the checks that we make whenever we drive.
How often do you text and drive? No, really, think about it. You're driving down the road and your phone buzzes, beeps, or hollers. Do you take a peek? If you answered yes, you're risking your life and the lives of others. A recent AT&T survey asked 1,200 teens about texting and driving, and the results were quite scary. 61% of teenagers who answered questions say they look at their phone while driving. 43% of them say they actually text while driving, and they know it's not safe. Because in that exact same survey, almost all of the teens said texting and driving is dangerous. And when they're sitting at a red light, more teens think it's okay to mess with their phones. 73% glance at their messages, while 60% of them send one. But that could be just as dangerous because did you know thousands of crashes happen each year at intersections with traffic lights? And peer pressure could be to blame because 9 out of every 10 teens surveyed expect a reply within 5 minutes. And adults aren't helping, at least from the teenager's perspective, because 77% of teens said adults tell kids not to text and drive, yet do it themselves all the time. So what will make them stop? 89% of teenagers surveyed said a phone app that prevents texting and driving would be an effective way to get them and their friends to stop. So the next step, download AT&T Drive Mode, an app that helps curb the urge to text and drive. Then, take the pledge and share it with your friends. Texting and driving, it can wait. Hundreds of thousands of people have already signed on. Will you?
I know everything about everything. I know what my friends are doing all the time. Seriously, I know almost everything because I pay attention. Well, most of the time. I know about cars and driving and what it takes to drive safely.
Right, but it doesn't hurt to review what you already know.
I know what I need before I get in the car. My keys, my phone, my wallet or bag. I know to adjust my seat and check my mirrors and put on my seatbelt and lock the doors before I take off.
Did you know 10% of high school students report rarely or never wearing seatbelts when riding with someone else?
I know I've always got to be careful and drive safely. Mom and Dad and everybody tell me to pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. Huh, maybe they're right? I know my parents can take away my keys anytime. Ugh. I know I need to obey traffic lights and street signs, and going faster than the speed limit is dangerous and illegal. I know I could get a ticket or lose my license if I break the rules. That's not cool.
Did you know teen drivers are 50% more likely to crash in the first month of having a license than they are after a full year of experience?
I know the difference between fog lights and high beams. I know to drive slower in rain or snow or ice or fog. I know I need to be awake and alert. I know I need to pay attention to road conditions all the time because a car can slide out of control in 1 second. That's scary. I know to keep the radio down and not sing too loud so I can hear a siren or a horn.
Did you know 57% of teen crashes involve going too fast, not paying attention, or failing to yield?
I know I shouldn't change the AC or look up directions when the car is moving. I know those all distract me from the only thing I should be doing, driving. I know not to text and drive or make calls when I'm in the car.
Did you know more than 50% of high school students say they text while they drive at least sometimes?
I know it's really hard and a little gross to eat when I'm driving.
Gross!
I know I need to pay 100% of my attention to signs and lights and other cars every single second.
Did you know 20% of crashes that injure someone are caused by a distracted driver?
I know it's illegal for me to drink alcohol. And I know that when I'm 21, it's illegal to drink alcohol and drive impaired. It's dangerous, illegal, and just plain stupid. I know I need to be careful driving if I've taken medicine. And I definitely shouldn't let a friend who's impaired get behind the wheel.
Did you know 60% of teen drivers involved in fatal crashes who had been drinking were not wearing a seatbelt?
I know I could get arrested and lose my license if I drive impaired. And I know I could get grounded forever. I know I need to be home by curfew, but I still need to drive safely and obey stop signs and red lights. I know I may get grounded, but it's better than not getting home at all. Wow, so I do know a lot. I know that teens are more likely to be in crashes than adults.
Did you know more than 300,000 teens are injured in crashes each year?
I know my friend could die if I get in a crash. Or I could die. Or somebody I don't even know could die. And I know I don't want any of those things to happen.
Did you know motor vehicle crashes are the leading cause of death for teens in the U.S.?
I know I need to drive safely and always pay attention. So I keep my license and get home safely every time. And if I forget anything about driving, I know I can ask my parents. And they'll be cool and remind me. Wow, I really do know everything.
To demonstrate the space around a vehicle where the driver cannot see, a student will walk slowly away from the driver's side of the vehicle until the driver can see the student's shoes. The student will mark that position with a traffic cone. The student will then position themselves in front of the vehicle and again walk slowly away until the driver can see the student's shoes. The student will again mark that position with a traffic cone. The student will continue doing this for both the passenger side of the vehicle, walking slowly away until the driver can see the student's shoes and marking that position with a traffic cone, and the rear of the vehicle, walking slowly away until the driver can see the student's shoes and marking that position with a traffic cone. This marks the area around the vehicle where the driver cannot see. The area behind the vehicle is larger than the area to the front and to the sides. The student must walk further until the driver sees the student's shoes. Drivers need to compensate for this space by properly adjusting their seat and mirrors. Learning space management techniques will help to prevent collisions, which will be discussed later in the course.
Are your tires inflated properly? Both headlights working? Are your seat and steering wheel adjusted for right driving posture? Are your mirrors positioned correctly?
You want to lean out a little bit, son, in order to see the whole side of the car from your side view mirror. Now I can see the whole side of the car. And you can adjust your rear view mirror to give you the best possible view of your rear windshield.
Fasten your seatbelts, of course. Check all your fluid gauges, windows, lock your doors.
Power, everything. Windows, locks.
Yeah, it's really tricked out, Dad.
When you're ready to go, look around you in all directions to make sure it's safe.
When you back out, son, look over your shoulder. Make sure you can go.
Pop.
And ease on down the accelerator.
Sit back. To the zoo. Zoo. Okay.
Straighten it out. Okay.
Let me go. Here we go.
I don't remember none of this. None of this from last year.
Jasmine, would you leave JT alone, please?
Can you help me out here, Stephanie? I'm a little lost.
I thought you knew where you were going.
Do you have the directions?
Get some Fruit Loops, JT.
What time were we supposed to be there? We're late. Do you want to stop and call someone? Straight or right at this intersection?
Yeah, that would probably be a good idea. If he hits something hard inside the occupant compartment, he may see more force than he does.
One way we learn more about what happens in crashes is by running vehicle crash tests. Right now, we're in the final stages of getting this car ready for a test. It's going to hit a barrier at 30 miles an hour, and the impact is going to happen very quickly. Then we'll go back and look at slow motion film that lets us see exactly what happened in the crash. This car is going 30 miles an hour.
And everything inside it is moving at the same speed. When the car first contacts the barrier,
the occupant compartment doesn't stop immediately because the front end of the car is crushing and absorbing energy. This happens in a fraction of a second. But people can still be protected if they're restrained. If they're not, they continue moving at 30 miles an hour until they slam into something like the steering wheel, dashboard, or windshield. People get injured in crashes because they come to a stop too fast.
when there's plenty of time to slow down, like during braking,
they don't get injured.
But when they slam into something hard, they stop very fast,
and injuries can occur. Safety belts and airbags together offer the best protection in frontal crashes. They allow people to slow down with the occupant compartment. Airbags also spread the crash forces over the upper body and reduce the risk of serious head and chest injury. Safety belts protect people in non-frontal crashes too. Plus, they prevent ejection. And if there are violent maneuvers before a crash, belts keep people in their seats where they need to be for airbag protection. To get the maximum benefits, you need to do more than just buckle up. It also matters how you buckle up and where you sit.
First, the lap part of the belt should fit as low as possible over your hips. Don't let it ride up over your stomach. If it does ride up over your stomach, which can happen, especially with bench seats, the belt itself could injure you during a crash. The shoulder belt should fit comfortably. If it rubs against your neck, check to see if it can be adjusted. You might also try adjusting the seat for a more comfortable fit. If this doesn't work, still use your shoulder belt. Don't ever put it behind you or under your arm.
And don't let anybody else, including children, do this.
A driver should position the seat as far away from the steering wheel as is comfortable for driving. The more distance, the less chance that your face will hit the steering wheel in a crash.
And keep in mind, this can happen in a severe crash, even if you're using a safety belt. An airbag gives additional upper body restraint and can keep your face from hitting the steering wheel. But remember that a crash is over in a fraction of a second, so the airbag has to inflate very fast. They look like soft pillows in slow motion, but when they begin inflating, there's considerable force behind them. Ideally, you want the bag to fully inflate before you contact it.
This is another reason to move your seat back as far as it's comfortable, away from the path of an inflating airbag.
Once it's inflated, it provides an energy-absorbing buffer as it deflates.
Something else to remember,
is not to drive with your arm across the steering wheel. The reason is the same as why you sit back and away from an airbag. The initial inflation force can be enough to break your arm.
Now, the up position. It's 6 centimeters.
Toward the end of a serious frontal crash, people rebound backwards toward the seat, and then their head restraints can be important. The primary purpose of these is to protect the head and neck in a rear impact. But head restraints can also catch your head and prevent injury during rebound. A head restraint should be directly behind and very close to the back of your head. If your head restraint isn't fixed in place, adjust it so that it's behind and as close to the back of your head as possible. This way, it can protect you in both front and rear impacts. So far, we've been focusing on the best protection for drivers, and most of it applies to adult passengers too. Then there are some different steps for children. Ideally, infants and young children should always ride in the rear, where the risk of injury is lower. If there's a passenger airbag, rear-facing restraints should never be placed up front, because if the airbag inflates, it can hit the back of the restraint with enough force to seriously injure the baby. When infants graduate to child seats, they should still ride in back. Make sure the restraint is tightly secured to the vehicle with a safety belt, and the child is buckled in too. When children get too big for their child restraints, they may use booster seats to raise them up and get a better fit into an adult safety belt. Or a child may be big enough to use an adult belt without a booster. Just be sure the lap belt fits low across the hips and the shoulder portion is comfortable. Don't ever put a shoulder belt behind a child or under the arm. Remember, the rear seat is still the safest. Only if there's no choice should a child ride up front. And if there's a passenger airbag, it's very important to remember that the force of an inflating airbag can cause injuries. So move the vehicle seat back as far as it will go to keep the child away from the airbag. And for the same reason, don't let a child sit forward on the edge of the seat like some kids want to do. And remember this especially. Never place an infant restraint up front if there's a passenger airbag. Riding unrestrained has always been the biggest hazard for both children and adults. Safety belts and airbags are saving lives and preventing serious injuries. If you take these few extra steps, you'll be in a position to get the maximum benefits from your restraints. So remember the basics. Buckle up properly. Sit back so you're away from the steering wheel and airbag. Check your head restraint. And make sure infants and children are restrained properly in rear seats. Making sure everyone is effectively restrained is the best way to reduce your risks in the crash.
Hi, I'm Mark Thush. I'm an accident attorney practicing personal injury law here in Florida. In today's video, we'll discuss the 6 common myths that wearing a seatbelt saves lives. Myth number 1, if your car has airbags, you don't need a seatbelt. Not so, my friend. Airbags are designed to protect a buckled occupant. When unbuckled, airbags become less effective or worse, they can become deadly themselves. Myth number 2, your seatbelt can hurt you in a crash. Not so. In a crash, everything in your car can cause you harm. Your seatbelt is one of the few things that can actually save you. Myth number 3, seatbelts can trap you if you're in a fire or underwater. Well, accidents involving fire or water account for less than 0.5% of all crashes. But more importantly, you can't escape the dangers unless you're conscious. Wearing a seatbelt gives you a much greater chance of being conscious, thus allowing you to free yourself. Myth number 4, just being in a truck makes you safer than everyone else. Not so, my friends. If you're traveling in an SUV, pickup, or a van, wearing a seatbelt reduces the risk of fatal injury by 60%. Myth number 5. If you're not going far or traveling fast, seatbelts aren't necessary. Listen, round trips can be deceptively dangerous. Most fatal crashes happen within 25 miles of your home and at speeds of less than 40 miles per hour. And myth number 6, this is one of my favorites. It's not essential for guys to wear seatbelts since they're much better drivers. Not so, my friend. False. Young men are the most at risk. 66% of men aged 18 to 34 who were killed in fatal crashes were not wearing a seatbelt. That's the highest of any group. So what's the answer? My car does not move until everyone puts on his or her seatbelt. In my family, wearing a seatbelt has become a tradition, and we simply do not leave the driveway unless everyone is buckled up. It takes like 2 seconds to buckle your seatbelt, and the life you save might be your own, a loved one, or an innocent passenger in your car. If you have a question about an auto accident that you or a family member was involved in, pick up the phone and call me. I can answer your legal questions. You can reach me at 407-862-2767 or by email, that's mark@thushLaw.com. I promise to give you a straightforward, honest, and personal answer. That's my guarantee. I'm Mark Thush. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon.
This video will demonstrate the basics of driving, making the car go where we want it to. We'll start with the parts of the car that let us do that, and then we'll see how to do it. Of course, we can't learn to actually control a car through a video. That requires skills that can only be gained in a car. But we can learn the what, where, and how through video, and speed up the process of in-car instruction. You may know a lot about this already, but bear with it. There's a lot that you may not know. We'll start with the what and where. We'll introduce each of the car's controls with what they do and where they are. Then we'll move on to how they are used in driving the car. We'll start with the ignition. It supplies power to the electrical system. In the off position, there is no electricity to run the engine. Also, there may be no current to run the lights, wipers, or radio in order to keep the battery from running down if the equipment is accidentally left on. Finally, in this key position, the steering wheel is generally locked to discourage theft. Putting in the ignition key and turning to the on position allows us to operate the electrical equipment and check the warning lights. Sometimes a special accessory position allows us to operate electrical equipment without having the full ignition on. Turning it further to the start position will cause the starter to turn the engine. We release the key once the engine starts. Next comes the shift lever. It controls the transmission, which transmits power from the engine to the wheels. Sometimes it's on the steering column. Other times, it's on a center console. At the beginning, the transmission will generally be in P for park. Otherwise, in most cars, the starter won't work. D stands for drive, which makes the car go forward and automatically shifts up through the gears to allow the same engine speed to make the car go faster. Cars have different numbers of lower gears. On long or steep downgrades, moving the shift lever down one gear may help slow the car. Lower gears are also useful for starting from rest with heavy loads. They may also be used when maximum power is needed to get a heavy vehicle up a steep incline. R stands for reverse, to make the car go backwards. When the car is in drive and the way is clear, we're ready to move out. The control that handles that is the accelerator. It regulates the flow of fuel to the engine, controlling acceleration, the rate at which the car speeds up. To the left is the brake pedal. A hydraulic brake uses fluid and pressure against the brakes to slow the car. With a manual brake system, the pressure is controlled entirely by the driver's foot. Most new cars these days have anti-lock brake systems, known as ABS. When we apply the brake fully, ABS regulates the pressure to get the most out of the brakes without locking them. We'll learn more about that later in the course. For now, the important thing is to know whether the car we are driving has manual or anti-lock brakes. This is what lets us go where we want to go. The steering wheel points the front wheels in the right direction. The rest of the car follows. These are the controls that handle the speed and direction of the car, referred to as the primary controls. Then there's a set of secondary controls. We can't show where they are because they differ from one car to another, but we can show what they do. There's a control to turn the headlights on at night and when visibility is bad. There's also a high and low beam control. Later in the course, we'll talk about when each is used. Parking lights let a parked car be seen by others. They draw less current than headlights and won't blind oncoming drivers. They must not be used when the car is moving. The turn signal lever lets us signal other cars before we turn or change lanes. Emergency flashers make lights at the front and the rear of the car blink simultaneously. They attract attention when necessary, such as when a car is pulled to the side of the road because of a mechanical problem. On some highways, drivers traveling at slow speeds are required to use flashers. Windshield wipers and washers help drivers keep a clear view of the road and traffic in wet conditions. There's a control to turn them on and a speed control to let us adjust the speed of the wipers according to the amount of rain. The windshield washers will help clear the windshield of dirt, particularly the spray that is thrown on the windshield by trucks and other vehicles ahead. There's a control to turn on the heat when it's cold and get cold air when it's hot. In addition to the car's controls, there are some gauges we need to know about. The speedometer says how fast we're going. The odometer shows the total mileage traveled by the vehicle. Often there's also a trip odometer that we can reset at the beginning of a trip to see how far we've traveled. The fuel gauge says how close to full or empty the tank is. We probably have some fuel left when it reads empty, but we don't count on it. The water temperature indicator shows the temperature of the water in the cooling system. If it rises out of the normal range, we need to check the cooling system right away. If it is cold, we let the engine idle for a minute. The oil gauge indicates oil pressure. Indicators just show when the pressure has dropped to a dangerous level. The alternator indicator registers the output of the system that keeps the battery charged. It is very important to learn the location and operation of all controls and indicators before we start to drive a particular car. We may have to use any of them when conditions change. It's dangerous to go hunting for them while driving. And anytime we drive someone else's car or rent one, we take a few moments to make sure we know where everything is.
A new study exposes a disturbing trend among teen drivers. Auto Club AAA reports distraction was a factor in nearly 6 of 10 moderate or severe accidents involving teenagers. Car crashes are the leading cause of death for American teens. Wyatt Andrews is on the road in Washington with the sobering statistics. Wyatt, good morning.
Good morning. We have known that distracted driving is dangerous, especially for teenagers, but this report says it's worse than we imagined. In this study, AAA collected 6 years' worth of videos, all of them taken from inside the cars of teen drivers. The drivers all knew they were being taped, but here's what happened anyway. Never mind the dashboard camera that's taping them, these teen drivers still got distracted. Texting, staring out the window, talking on the phone, or simply talking to each other.
That was my phone.
This young man on the phone looks both ways twice, but then still gets hit from the side. In the study, AAA found that distraction was a factor in 58% of all teenage crashes, a number 4 times the government estimate of 14%. It also found that teenagers using phones take their eyes off of the road an average of 4.1 seconds. Peter Kissinger is the president of the AAA Foundation. Did the idea that there might be people not looking at the road at all for 4.1 seconds scare you?
1 second eyes off the road at 65 miles an hour is the equivalent of driving the length of a basketball court. So just imagine what it is if you have 4 seconds.
Eyes off the road is what killed 17-year-old Sydney Williams, who crossed the median and flipped her car on a highway in Ohio. Her father, Brock Dietrich, still blames himself for the example he had set.
I used to text while I drove, so I really live with the guilt that Sydney learned texting and driving from me, and that's what cost her life.
The federal government tried to sound the cell phone alarm last year with this national ad that was designed to be realistic and disturbing. AAA says that states should do more to prevent distracted driving, but learning safe behavior, they say, starts at home.
The parents can enforce a restriction on the number of passengers that their teenager drives with. Their parents can ban cell phones while they're in the vehicle.
And here's what else parents need to know. As dangerous as cell phone driving is, the other leading cause of teenage accidents is having more than one friend in the car as they drive. Nora?
All right, thank you so much, Wyatt. Very disturbing.
Parents everywhere have to sit down with their kids and have this conversation again.
That's right.
So, now we're ready to start up and go. Well, not quite. There are a few things to take care of first. The seat needs to be adjusted to the driver. The right option is the one that allows the best control of the car. The seat should be the proper distance from the wheel. Place our hands like this. Now, with this grip on the wheel, we'll be able to turn it without interfering with our vision. If the car has an airbag, it should be at least a foot from the body. Our legs shouldn't be cramped or fully extended. The right foot should reach the floor behind the brake pedal. The knee should be slightly bent, so that there's room to flex it easily when we move it between accelerator and brake, and to flex the ankle. If the seat is too far back, we may not be able to steer or brake properly, or operate other controls. With the seat too far forward, the arms are cramped, and we can't turn the wheel as easily or quickly, or to get to the brake in a hurry. And on long trips, the extra effort can be very tiring. Another adjustment we need to make before we start is the mirrors. Every time the seat position is changed, the mirrors need to be readjusted. Properly adjusted, the inside mirror should be aimed at the middle of the back window, and we should be able to just see the bottom of the window. In daylight, it should be on the day setting. If it looks like this, we have it on the night setting. We'll talk about that later in the course when we discuss night driving. For most driving, we'll want the day setting. Now to the outside mirrors. Their purpose is to let us see the area between the inside mirror and what we can see to either side. These areas were often called blind spots, mostly because the side mirrors weren't set right. But with proper adjustment, we can just about eliminate the blind spot on most cars. To do this, we rest our head against the closed window and set the mirror to barely show the edge of our vehicle. Without an inside mirror adjustment, we roll down the window and adjust the mirror by hand. Now, when we're sitting behind the wheel, the left mirror will show the area between that shown in the inside mirror and what we see out the left side. To set the right mirror, we move as far right as we can stretch, and then adjust the mirror to show the edge of the right side of the vehicle. Again, if we don't have an inside mirror adjustment, we do it by hand and check the image. Notice how the image in the right mirror makes the car look further away than it really is. That's because it's made convex to show us a larger area than we get with a flat mirror. With the mirrors properly adjusted, we can see everything behind us, to the right and to the left. Let's see how this will work out on the highway. There's a car about to pass us. Watch how he moves from the inside mirror to the left outside mirror to our field of vision. We're okay on the left. Let's check to the other side as we pass that car on the right. There he goes, to the right outside mirror and to the inside mirror. Looks like the mirrors are adjusted properly. All this has to be done before we start, though. We can't reach the outside mirrors while we're driving. Just a few more checks and we'll be ready to go. The head restraint. It's not comfort, but to keep our head from snapping back in a rear-end collision and causing whiplash, one of the most painful and long-lasting injuries. It should be behind our head, not our neck. Lock the doors to keep strangers out and in if there's a collision. And finally, this is the single biggest thing we can do to save life and limb, to say nothing of that nice face. Later in the course, when we'll have a better idea of what can happen on the road, we'll see just how important safety belts can be. Right now, it's just a matter of adjusting them correctly. The lap belt should be snug across the hips. The shoulder belt should be snug across the chest. We can lean forward whenever we need to. But in a crash, the belt will keep us where we should be. Adjusting the seat, the mirrors, head restraint, and belts usually takes less than a minute. If no one else has been driving the car and nothing needs to be adjusted, all it takes is the few seconds needed to make sure that everything is the way we left it. Driving is one of the most difficult of life's activities. To do it well and avoid mishaps, we need everything possible going for us. Having a car that fits us like a glove is one of them.
Do you know the old adage, you have to look before you leap? Well, the same applies to driving. You need to see where you're going to get there safely. And on today's autofocus, I'm going to show you how to properly adjust your side view and your rear view mirror. Yeah, seems simple enough. You adjust your mirrors till you can see behind you and everything's great. But there is a technique so you can see into those blind spots behind your car and see that car coming up behind you. Now, the proper way to adjust your driver's side view mirror is to lean your head all the way over until just about till you touch the glass like this. Then adjust your mirror until you just see beyond your car. You should just see just that little sliver. You shouldn't see that. You're going to adjust just beyond that. What that's going to allow you to do is to see past that blind spot. You don't need to see your car. You need to see the lane next to you and to see the car that's in it. Now, with the passenger side view mirror, you want to lean as far over towards the center as you can and adjust that mirror till you see just beyond your car. That will allow you to see into that 3/4 view blind spot on your passenger side. Now, for the rear view mirror, a lot simpler. Most people do this right. Obviously, you just want to adjust it till you see right behind you. If you're in that Jeep right there and you want to be in this turn lane, what do? You check your side view mirror, you don't see a car there, and you pull on in. And then suddenly, boom, there's a car there. Now, if your mirror was adjusted properly, this is what you would have seen. Take a moment, adjust your mirrors properly. A well-adjusted mirror can actually save your life. I'm Ben Italis with this week's Autofocus.